What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to show it to you right now. This is the new album from the band Twilight, entitled 3, Beneath Trident's Tomb. This is released on Century Media Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they are based out of Chicago, Illinois, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be a very bleak, dark, and experimental style of black metal. This has been a black metal project that has featured a revolving door of characters and band members from many different bands within black metal and U.S. black metal and other formats of extreme music. Notably bands such as Krieg, Leviathan, the Atlas Moth, Minsk, to bands such as Noctmistium, Draugar, Isis, Zaster, just to name a few. And in this project existing, there have been 3 full-length albums. The self-titled debut back in 2005, the second album, Monument to Time End, in 2010. Both albums very different from each other, but both of them I thought were amazing full-length efforts. Very, very hard-hitting and very thought-provoking stuff. Now we have the third full-length album under the Twilight banner, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the final album under the Twilight name. Pretty much a good majority of people from the previous record have returned for this album, most notably Imperial of Krieg, Rest of Leviathan, Sanford Parker, doing the production work and the synth and electronic work, Stavros from the Atlas Moth, and a new inclusion into the Twilight banner, and that person being Thurston Moore. Now, if you don't know who Thurston Moore is, you may best know him for his work from the band Sonic Youth, a very, very regarded band within the alternative music worlds. And as soon as people found out about him joining the band, there was a lot of mixed reactions. People didn't know how they were going to take this addition to the band, like how it would affect the sound and overall ideas of this. So I was interested to hear how this would sound, and of the few songs that were released off of this album, I was very interested right away. And now here we are with Beneath Trident's Tomb. It's 6 tracks, and it clocks in at around 41 minutes in length. And musically and stylistically, this is the most unique, different, and ballsiest release that Twilight have done. And I should stress this. This is an album that you really shouldn't go into with the idea of skipping or fast-forwarding through it. This is really something that you have to listen to every single track in order to fully get and understand the ideas that are going on here. This is not an easy album to listen to. This is not a breeze. But for the fact that this is such a challenging listen really makes me respect what these 5 individuals have done for this particular album. And I respect them for wanting to do things on their own terms and do things their way. This is a very, very unique album. And I honestly don't know how it'll be taken amongst the rest of the metal collective around the world, but I think this is an awesome album. And I don't know where to put it amongst the Twilight albums that I have enjoyed from them previously. But this is special in its own way. The guitar riffs on here are extremely heavy, and just the way every riff is toned, the feedback, the guitar layering, there is a lot of that to be heard on this particular album. Preferably tracks like Oh Wretched Son. Just the way some of the riffs on that track sound really, really incredible and very heavy. And there are moments on the song where things take a completely different turn. There's a bit of a post-punk type of edge in some instances when it comes to the riff work. I really enjoy the way that it sounds. To even the song Swarming Funeral Mass, which is pretty much an instance of really almost sludgy doom-like influence going on, and I really, really appreciate the heaviness of that particular track. Um, Going forward onto this album to the track A Flood of Eyes, um, the next two tracks after that, excuse me, Seek No Shelter, Fevered Ones, and A Flood of Eyes, you just get very, very heavy riff work going on there on those particular tracks. And the bass work on there shines very well too. I don't feel you get to hear it as much as you do the guitar, because this is a very, very guitar driven, guitar orientated record. So much emphasis on the heavy riffs, heavy layering and feedback. I just think the bass definitely shows itself off when it needs to, and I think it sounds very good, the way that it's done on this particular album. Moving on to the drums, I believe Rest is behind the drum kit this time around, as he was the previous album and the other Twilight releases, and he pretty much delivers another really solid performance here. It's not anything meant to be flashy or fancy. It's just there to get the job done and deliver things in a very tasteful manner. Um, Going back to Swarming Funeral Mass, which is probably one of the more slower mid-paced tracks of this album, you do get some good force going on with the drums on that song. And going back to O Wretched Son, you do get a little bit of drum variations going on that track. You get the occasional black metal blast beat here and there. There is black metal influence on this album throughout, but more likely than anything, you're going to get other instances of an almost industrial metal kind of vibe and edge and element going on here. But the way the drums are being handled here, they're done very good, and I appreciate what Rest is doing here as far as the percussion goes. Um, and moving on to the noise and synth aspects of this album, of course, you heard a lot of that on the previous Twilight album, Monument to Time End, but on Beneath Trident's Tomb, it's an absolute full force here, and it honestly feels as if, in some instances, you're listening to an industrial record. I almost feel a Godflesh vibe going on here with certain instances of this album, to where the album sounds very cold, clammy, and nihilistic. And I appreciate what's being done here with the synths and the overall atmosphere of everything. Like, take the closing track of this album, Below Lights, which is an almost all electronic, synthy type of track. I think it's a very, very crazy sounding track, just the way everything is being handled on there. And even to the closing drums of that track. If I'm not mistaken, Dave Witt gets credit for doing drums on this particular track. And I think it's pretty damn cool what's being done here for the final track. Now we get on to the vocals. There is a different variety of vocal styles going on here. But the one vocalist that definitely stands out the most, if not more than any other, is Imperial. You can recognize his vocal style instantly. Very evil, demonic sounding screams. Just the kind of vocal performance you would expect for him to deliver on a Krieg record, he delivers here. His vocals are very, very, very crazy sounding, very demonic, and I love that about his vocal performance. He definitely delivers the best vocals out of anybody here on this album, in my opinion. The other vocal styles that show up on here sound very good too. The low range growls, you hear that on tracks like Oh Wretched Son, excuse me, not Oh Wretched Son, but Swarming Funeral Mass. The low growls that you hear on there sound very good too. And going back to tracks like Lungs and Oh Wretched Son, you hear an almost wailing kind of vocal style. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that's Thurston Moore doing some of the wailing and the yowling in some instances. And I think that's a very crazy vocal style. It adds a little bit of depth and variety to the song structuring and everything that's going on. But yeah, like I said, more likely than anything, Imperial delivers the best vocals out of everybody here. The other vocals sound very good too, but I enjoyed Imperial's vocals a lot more. So, overall, like I said previously, this is an album that is a very difficult album to listen to. This is a very challenging listen. If you're a fan of the previous two Twilight albums, I would say to not expect what you would expect on the previous two Twilight albums to be found here. This is a completely different record in its own right. I respect the musicians for wanting to do things their way and complete this album in the way that they intended to. This is a very, very dark and bleak vision. I appreciate the black metal aspects of this album. I also appreciate the elements of nihilism, the noise, the industrial elements, the doomy, noisy elements. I think it's crazy. I would want to say that this is one clusterfuck of an album, but I mean that in the most positive way possible. So, if you're a fan of any of the bands that these people are in, then I would say give it a shot. If you like it, cool. If not, then move on. You have better things to listen to anyway. So, yeah, if I had to pick any favorite tracks, I would definitely have to say "O Wretched Sun," "Swarming Funeral Mass," and "A Flood of Eyes." Just some crazy, crazy songwriting going on here. So I'm going to leave you some links in the description box to some selected tracks that are currently streaming available on YouTube right now, preferably Lungs and Swarming Funeral Mass, and I'll leave you some links to where you can purchase a physical copy. It is available on a CD format and also available on 12-inch vinyl. So whatever floats your boat when it comes to buying this album physically, the option will be available to you. So again, the album is 3, Beneath Trident's Tomb by Twilight. This is released on Century Media Records. Check this out. And as far as the score is concerned, I'm going to give this a very solid 8 out of 10. A very, very commendable effort from a really awesome black metal supergroup. If this is how they choose to go out with a bang, then I respect them for doing so in the ways that they set out to do. So, support Twilight. I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel. And until the next time, Army Ho out.